15, 16 people in here. Won't keep people waiting. I'm sure everybody has stuff to do. It's actually going to be a beautiful day out today. I heard some people are out there playing some 10-man. So 2021 annual captains meeting. I wish it could be in person. Probably could have still done it in person, but I think this works out more. It hits everybody. We can get this done in an hour or so and have more people involved. For those that,
yeah.
What do you got?
Can you see that?
See people waiting?
No, see the screen.
I can see the screen.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can see it, Lori. It
I
looks
just
good.
can't, okay. I lost my mouse, so if I need to do something different, we're screwed. So as long as I can.
Oh, should be good. All right. For those of you that were at the 3-man, the 2 events yesterday, thank you. It went really smoothly, both the morning and afternoon. Ended up having 20 teams. We're doing a D3 event next Saturday. We'll talk about some of the off-season stuff we're doing. We are going to start rotations right after the new year. So hopefully we'll start 2021 off really well and end it much better than this year. If you want to skip to the next screen, Law. So off-season events, I want to thank Twan for coming on board with Destroyer Lifestyle and donating some prizes for the 3-man series. But the next event is going to be the weekend of January 16th, 17th. We don't have the exact dates yet, but it's going to be that weekend for both the D3 and D4. And then the last one's going to be the weekend, most likely the February 20th, 21st. Again, those divisions are available for D3 and D4.
And I'm going to interrupt you. Can you just check and see if anybody's trying to get in? I can't do it. I don't have a mouse.
Okay. There you go. All right, I'll just keep admitting people when I hear the ding.
Yeah.
So like we said, rotations are going to start on January 3rd. And right now the indoor field is set up more like a sporting complex where we're able to only run like leagues and rent out the facility similar to like an indoor soccer field or a hockey rink. So our capacity right now is only 50 people. So if you guys are interested in doing something privately with like 20 people, get some like 2 teams together or whatever, I can potentially do that for you guys as well to keep you going over the off season. So just reach out to me if that has any interest to you. We do have the 16th annual Boston Combine coming up January 9th. And then we will be doing something cool on the 10th. It may be team clinics where you can have, it won't be a rotation. It'll be more private or intimate where we'll have the professors that are there. We'll work with maybe 4 teams total, play some split deck throughout the day. So if anybody's interested in that, that'll be the 10th. We do have Kyle Spica, Ryan Greenspan, and Slowiak will be down for that weekend. Then the Ultimate Shootout, which was scheduled tentatively for the 20th and 21st, I'm pretty sure we're going to move it to the 6th and the 7th. That way, Greg Pauly himself is going to come up and run the event, and we'll get the true Ultimate Shootout experience. So for those of you that don't know about that, it has multiple divisions. So there's going to be a U19 division. There's going to be an amateur division, a masters division, and a women's division. I think a few of them are self-explanatory, but the masters is 40 and above, and U19 is obviously 19 or under. The indoor XBall event, we're probably going to be doing one event in March, that 20th, 21st weekend, most likely, and get everybody ready for the season. Keep the entrance fee down, and it'll be just something that is like a practice event. Probably only be able to take 8 teams, but I already have the scoreboard and the buzzers and everything in the indoor field already. So even if people want to do something with those private practices and want to get the speed of play up, we can have the scoreboard and the buttons and everything set up where if you want to use that, you can. Any questions on any of that stuff?
Yeah, what is the entry for the team clinic, and what's going to be the entry for the indoor tournament on March 20th and 21st?
I don't know the exact numbers, but for the indoor XBall event, it will be cheaper than like an NEPL event because the
Okay.
prize package is going to be lower. And again, we're
And
trying to
there's
just
less
get people.
teams too.
Yeah. And we're just trying to get people off the couch. You know, it's almost a build-up where we have these 3-man events going on until February. And then, you know, we've got all the singular stuff with the ultimate shootout. And then we're going to hopefully get people interested in getting into the 5-man. And you'll see that the NEPL is making a comeback, and we're working with other fields to get 3 and 5-man back. But it's kind of a build up to that indoor event before we start the season in April.
No, I get that. Do you know what the team clinic though? What the cost is around that?
It'll be the normal price of the rotation, and I'm trying to figure out exactly what the extra cost for the professor will be. Probably in that $250 to $500 range, depending on how long we do it.
And that's 250 per person or 250 a team?
Per team.
Okay. So 250 to 500 per team. Okay, thank you.
No problem.
I think I would just mention that with all of these little dates and things going on, there's a lot of flexibility in between. Since the indoor field can't officially be publicly open, and that we're running it as like a sports complex, that other things that we weren't able to do when we're running at full capacity, we now have the ability to do. So that private practice opportunities is really wide open as far as opportunities. So if anybody wants to get in there, just reach out or send a message to Ant, and we can see what we can work out. And there might be a way to work things between teams and stuff. So
yeah, we want to keep it safe, keep it controlled, and obviously we want to make it make sense for us and for you. So we wouldn't be able to run a 5-on-5 private for you, but we would be able to do something, like I said, 20 people probably we could run in and do something for a few hours. But again, reach out to us if you have anything. We can go from there. All right, we can move to the next slide. All right, so 2021, for us, we're going to do something very similar to what we did last year. And we're going to be offering D3 and D4 XBall, exactly like the NXL, split deck, 12-minute matches. We're going to stick to our 3 preliminary matches. We feel that that's real good, get it done in one day, and try not to spend too much money on paint. You know, the teams that end up going all the way and playing 5 matches, it's a long day. Last year, it was really good for us in the sense that we never had a division that had less than 8 teams. We never had and then we did have a couple divisions that had 12 teams. So we saw our capabilities and what our limitations were and what we need to do to be able to run an event smoothly. So we are maxing out at 12 teams per division. So we will we'll only be able to take 24 teams total for the whole year for D3 and D4. We want to keep some spots open. I mean, if all teams franchise and we have 24 teams, then great. But if we have spots open, we feel real strongly that we'll be able to fill them. Some of the things that hindered us, obviously, last year from filling with COVID, we had the border shut down. We had 2 Canadian teams that wanted to franchise that weren't even able to get over the border. And we had one, New York team that normally would play that was COVID averse and decided that they didn't want to travel. So we do feel that we should get close to maxing out on both days. And we'll get into a couple variations of how we can run the event. Some of the things we learned from this year that we may be able to apply last year to this year. You see committed star points. We're going to do that again. You might have seen that on Facebook and other social media. We've been looking for a full-time videographer. We're still trying to lock something down. We want to, I don't know if some of you guys have been around for a while, so you remember the Dirty Water TV days and the TV show. We're trying to bring a little of that back and do some of that stuff internally and potentially even, again, buy some airtime for paintball to get back on TV and get in front of more viewers. A good thing for, I guess, the silver linings you take from COVID is that paintball fields outdoor did really well. Once they were able to open, it exposed a lot of people to paintball. We already had the upward trend of people getting back into paintball that used to play tournament paintball, and with 10-man and also again with people being forced to do more outdoor activities, a lot of people pick paintball back up or just started playing paintball. Also, people have moved into the area. There's a decent amount of people that I've spoken to, Laurie's spoken to, that some of which were at the 3-man yesterday that just moved in over this COVID year and and are avid tournament players. So if any of you guys are looking for players, you can DM Laurie or myself, and we can start helping you guys out. The combine's probably not going to be what it normally would be in the past, where we can have spectators and coaches and scouts. So we do have to limit what we have in there. But if you are interested or looking to fill out your roster, there are some players that have moved in, as well as some players that are moving up that are regulars at the field that are looking to join tournament teams. Anything on this slide here that anybody has any questions on?
Good.
All right, we can move to the next. All right, so for the NEPL, we've been working closely with AG. They did a really good job of promoting and doing 3- and 5-man events last year. We had a tough time getting the teams committed to playing 3- and 5-man last year. And I think for us too, that trying to do 5 and 5 events is tough for us to do 3 and 5. And we want to spread geographically out these events and really try to build from the bottom again. So having talked to Eric and a bunch of the guys, the Knights over at AG, we are going to kind of team up on the NEPL. It's kind of return to what we used to do. We're having the events at different locations. So AG will be hosting the 1st and 3rd event, and Maynard will be hosting the 2nd and 4th event.
Uncapped semi?
We are going to be offering 7-man at our 2 events. AG is going to be offering just 3 and 5-man at their events. It's going to be, the 3 and 5-man are going to be similar to what we did for the 3-man indoor, where no D3 players or above will be allowed to play. And it'll be strictly for D4 players and lower, hoping that some of the D4 players will actually bring along some newer players and get some D4, D5 players in. The D5, having D5 only divisions is tough. You don't have that organizer, that enthusiast that already knows that tournament paintball is so addicting. So we try to use those players as mentors. And when you try to have just a D5 only event, Eric and I spoke about this in length a little bit yesterday, it's very hard to pull off. So we want to have some crossover between our XBall events and our 3 and 5-man, and then even some crossover from our 3-man events to our 5-man events. 7-man. So I spoke to a bunch of people, especially at the 10-man events, that really wanted to see 7-man potentially come back. But again, they don't want to play a full series. They want to play just a couple events. So we're just going to offer 2 7-man events, and we'll go over dates later. Our dates are already on here. You guys will be able to see all the dates. But we're going to be holding 2 7-mans on the 2 NEPLs that we host in Maynard, the 2nd and 4th events. It'll be in June and September, but you'll see those dates in a little bit. Questions on this slide?
I just want to know if the 7-man would be back to uncapped semi, maybe?
It won't be uncapped, but it will be semi.
Okay.
And
Good question.
the one field that we have in Maynard that is of true 7-man size, it's 200 by 120. That's the field we'll be playing on. And I will be having, if there's interest in this, then I will be having some of the old school bunkers made, so we can, kind of pull out some old nostalgic field layouts and
Car
stuff
wash?
like that.
Get my car washed.
Paintball bunker day.
Bring the X back. The X.
A snake that was really a snake.
The
And the
snake that was really a
uncapped.
snake. Yeah, it was bigger, huh?
That's the only reason the 7-man's tough to be uncapped is obviously you can't control
I know.
the cheating that way. But
If we could get to 15 or 17, that'd be awesome.
yeah, I think that we definitely are going to go more than the 10.5 that the NXL has. I think a compromise might be the 12.5, but we'll see where it's at. But yeah, it will be higher than the 10.5.
And are there any restrictions like there was for the D4 events this year where you can't team hop or anything like that with 7-man?
So we're going to get to that, but I guess I can answer that right now. We're going to stick with the NXL rules. We feel that they covered this pretty well, where you can team hop from different formats. You can't team hop from different divisions within the same format. So if D3 and D4 happen to be on different days in XBall, you can't play in both events because they're the same format.
Yeah.
But if you're playing 3-man, then 5-man, or XBall, then 7-man, those are different formats, and players playing in those teams are, similar players crossing over can 100% do that.
Sweet. Thanks.
Good. Next one.
Any other questions before we move off of this one? So we're really excited to work with AG and potentially down the road working with other fields to increase participation on the lower levels. We've always tried to do that with the combines and our own events, and we like anything, you can't put enough resources by yourself, and teaming up with good people. Anybody that's heard anything that I've ever said over the last 30 years knows that I'm a very big proponent of surrounding yourself with good people. And, AG is definitely one of those. And if we can get even another field involved out west or, south, then we can really bring the NEPL back to what it originally was and feed into 7-man events, XBall events, 10-man events. We've worked really closely with Goody to make sure that our dates and his dates worked well, moved a couple things to make sure he could get a practice date in, because we feel his 10-man events were really good for the region this year. And again,
minus the punching of the pro players.
Oh God.
They
Shout
would have
out
lost.
Hey, that brings the buzz.
Shout out Kilbash.
No punching in the head button.
Well, we would have lost if he didn't punch Ryan. So
Hey, much appreciated.
all righty, switch to the next one. All right, for everybody that played events this year, this is just a recap. The world that we're living in right now probably isn't going to change too much between now and the end of April. So at least our first events are going to be probably under similar guidelines that we played with in 2020. For those who haven't played the NEPLs or the NEXLs this year, we did limit capacity. We played one division at a time. We played one field at a time. Made everybody wear masks in the general and common areas. Each set of the pits we disinfected with our backpacks between sessions. We added 2 more temporary pits. That way, you're only around your own team. We added that hand washing station with the sink right on the way out. At the first event, especially when you're doing IDs, Laurie was delivering the IDs, and we were staggering registration and staggering people coming up to get their paint, online waivers. So these are all things that, some of which, like I said, silver linings, we may carry past the COVID era. But for right now, I would predict that this is probably what we're going to be looking at for event 1. Is there any questions or anybody that felt like we could have done more? Because we're open for that. We're trying to find the lowest common denominator for players that are risk averse, whatever, because we want them to feel comfortable as well. And I want to feel comfortable, and I want my staff to feel comfortable, my referees. So is there anything that you feel that we could add that would not take away from, the fun for everyone? No? Crickets?
No. Did anybody have
silence?
Yeah. I guess I would ask if anybody had we know dealing with the heads of teams that everything seemed to have gone well. I don't know if any of your players expressed anything, or if you feel like players were hesitant to play before they knew what the restrictions were. Like, I guess it's how comfortable are people, or how not worried are people? Just a feel between the teams, like how everybody's kind of approaching this. Because some people are lawless and some people are like, don't want to leave their houses. So I guess I would just ask what you guys feel, how your teams feel about the situation.
We won't leave our house till paintball.
Yeah. Okay.
Pretty much the whole Mystic crew is completely over this whole thing, and they just want to fucking play. Nobody gives a fuck about restrictions. I mean, hell.
Yeah.
We just
Yeah.
want to play. If we get sick, obviously we take the protocols serious. You know what I mean?
Right.
We make sure that our players, like if they are in contact, we make sure they just stay away from everybody else. But besides that, I mean, we just want to get on the field.
Yep. Okay.
I think that's the biggest thing that could be enforced, probably beyond what was done, is just really saying if you're sick, don't come.
Right.
I think that making that clear would probably be the best thing you can really do beyond what you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I will say that, because I know that some people are like, oh, I'm not feeling so great today, but I know it's not that, so I'm just going to show up anyway.
Especially if you got a fever.
Right. No one wants to miss event day, but with these times, you kind of don't want to put people at risk. So.
Right.
Yeah, just ask everyone to err on the side of caution,
All right, Laura, let's make that
Smart.
little note.
Yeah, but it's up to us to spread it to all our teammates, because there's always the 5 or 6 guys who I never heard anything.
Yeah, I mean, if it happens, it happens. The only thing we can do is just be cautious and be smart about it. That's all.
And what we all have to do in the paintball community is, if for whatever reason, for any godforsaken reason that we happen to get it, do not say it came from the tournament.
Oh God, no. That's
Keep
very
it
you
away.
gotta,
yeah.
you gotta avoid a shutdown at all costs. Like if you just show up and you don't feel good,
People, like, if you happen to get sick after a tournament or whatever, don't say you got sick after a tournament. Say you got sick at work or something like that. Keep it away from the paintball community. Try to keep the paintball community clear of any quote unquote outbreaks. Obviously let the people know that you were at, like, obviously, like, let Anthony know.
Yeah. Tell us. Okay.
Yeah.
It has been going pretty good, right? You haven't had any instances that you know of.
No, we have. I think what we did with the summer camp is kind of how we approached everything else. Like we started with the NEPL, and then we kind of carried that into the summer camp. But we went one step beyond in the summer camp, and we had people staying over. So we were doing temp checks, which gets a little crazy. So we didn't want to have to start doing that. We expect that the captains of the teams will handle within their own team. If you have something going on with the player, unfortunately, before we do. So if somebody, bench them. That's kind of how we trust you guys to do that. So if there's more that you think that we could do to intervene, obviously let us know. I've avoided putting things on the waivers, like having people check those stupid boxes, because I don't know if it hurts or helps, or I don't know what to do. But as long as we have a copacetic relationship, and you guys kind of know that we're trying to do what we can, we don't want to be invasive. We don't want to ask you a million questions. I'm not trying to get into business, and I don't want to take your temperature. So I think as long as we're all on the same page, that we have all these things in place to make sure that we're doing the best we can, and that you guys are monitoring your players. I think we have a handshake agreement here that we're going to handle this just how we've been doing. So
The best way that it's going to work is self-policing from the captains on their teams.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the good thing is about that, like, even if someone does happen to come up with something, like, more often than not, because I see it in my baseball facility all the time, it doesn't put out the whole league. It mostly just affects that direct team. So, like, say, for example, Will McLean comes up positive, right? That would just put the Knights out versus everybody else, because in reality, Will McLean's in direct contact with them versus the rest of the league. But obviously, you want to try to avoid that at all costs.
Here's a question. If say you
love
do
that, Sean.
lose a player because he has COVID, and you're down a man, would you allow us to fill the spot relatively easy for emergencies, or?
You can
Yeah, I don't
change
care
your
who's on the
roster
roster.
up
Yeah.
until the time the first paintball is shot.
Oh, excellent.
Yep.
That makes life easier.
Yep.
All right, so just to recap is that we're going to go and we're going to do everything that we've currently been doing. Jacob made a good point, is that we're just going to emphasize a little bit more leading up to the event, that if anybody is feeling sick, to make sure that they don't show to the event, and we'll go forward with this, especially knowing that the April event is most likely going to be affected by similar guidelines that we've had in 2020.
And if we hear something, then we'll let teams know if we need to. That's, I think, the other part.
All right, Laura, we're safe to switch.
Yeah.
All right, so these are some of the topics I'd like to discuss. We have already talked about the bottom one there. So again, we're going to do what we have to do for restrictions, which most likely will affect the April event at a minimum. Is last year when we did one division per day of play, some days we did it Saturday, Sunday. Some days we did it 2 Sundays. There's a few things that can't happen, and I can't do multiple Sundays anymore. It gets a little hectic for us, as well as it encroaches on other leagues' dates and stuff like that. So we want to put in place, a couple contingencies that everybody knows about already. So for instance, if we set up the first event where it's a Saturday, say just for shits and giggles, we're going to say Saturday is D3, Sunday is D4, vice versa for the first event. The second event, it would flip-flop, so no one division would always get Sundays. And that way, they know that if we're under restrictions, that date is already set in place with a contingency. There's a few, we have to do that because if we have restrictions at all. And there are some solid pros to running a division in one day for you guys. The cons are mostly on our side. The one con to you, I believe, is that obviously some of you work on Saturdays, and typically the preferred day of play for paintball is Sundays. But if you know ahead of time, I think it could still be fine that, say, worst case, you got to take 3 Saturdays off in a year. Some of the big pros that we saw from having single division days is the reffing, the fluidity of the event. Again, I'm not taking away anything from my referees when I've had 2 fields, 3 fields running at the same time. But outside of one event, like one actual day of play, I felt last year's reffing was the best reffing we've ever had. Having 10 refs on a field is the absolute right number. And when you have 10 solid refs that are reffing together every event, which is pretty much had the same refs working with each other all year long. And now we have some new refs that are trying to break into that. It's almost like they're fighting to be on that top 10. And you have people that are invested, that they're actual referees that take it as seriously as the players do. It just creates a much better product. And we felt that our product last year was really the best it's ever been. And so those are things that are great for you as players, but that one con is that you may have to play on a couple Saturdays. For us, there are definitely more costs involved running it on 2 days, because all we're doing is adding cost and splitting the same money that we would be getting if we ran it on 1 day. The one pro for us is that it is less stressful. Like again, this isn't Laurie and I just thinking that we're great, but running one field is like so easy for us. Like it's something we can almost do in our sleep. So there is like that makes it easy, where if I know I'm in the tower, that my field's always going to run on time, my field's going to be fine. And anything that is thrown at us, we can be handled, and you guys won't even know anything happened. So for us, that extra cushion of running one field per day makes it so the events is a lot less stressful. So that's got like a pro for us. So I just want to get your opinions on what you guys would want to see. I mean, again, post restriction. This within the restrictions, there's nothing we can do. We have to run one division per day. But this is really a conversation of, after restrictions are lifted, do we want to run one division per day to continue, or no, we don't want to do that. We want to go everybody playing on Sundays.
So, Dustin's a good kid. Yeah, he sucks.
I prefer it all on one weekend, 2 separate days.
Oh, fucking.
Okay. And give me a reason why. Well, I know you and I have spoken before, so I know one of the reasons is you have multiple teams, and you can actually cater to both teams equally, which is another pro for us as a league. Is a lot of times, and this is just how it is if we have 2 and 3 fields running, the D3 field gets the better refs sometimes, or all the time, because we need the more experienced refs to ref the more experienced players. And having divisions separately makes us have the same product for every division: 3-man, 5-man, D3, D4. They're all getting the exact same product. So that's something that's a pro for us too, is that we don't want one or two refs that are a little less experienced on our second or third field changing the experience for a player. So
yeah, I mean, it to me, even with the restrictions in play this year, every event went smooth, where it didn't matter if we went the distance or we got sent home early. Like, we were always done at a reasonable hour. Everyone started at the same time every day. It wasn't like one field was starting at 8:30 and then, one field started at 9 because of some whatever reason. You know what I mean? I feel like this year was very smooth with getting people in and out on both days.
anybody else have input that what either wasn't there or that was there?
I mean, we weren't there the majority of the events, but I know that the players do enjoy the feeling that, that everything's about that event that day. It's not, 3 different things going on and you guys being spread thin. It gives the player more confidence that the event's going to be run to a T, which it has been. So I really think that what you guys are doing is ideal as well.
Anthony, I got one off topic. Are you looking for refs this year, or are you all set?
Well, that's the reason we've been running these indoor tournaments as well, is that we're training refs. So Matt Jones, who's our pro referee that's on staff with us, works for us full time. He wanted to, work with AG. He went up to a couple of the AG events. Obviously the Knights are a well-seasoned team, and that carries over to their reffing, but they have a second team or a second set of refs that we're helping get them more experience. So when they ref NEPLs, one of the major reasons that the NEPL stopped going to other fields was that the variation of product. So you would come to Maynard, you'd be on, brand new turf fields. You would go to the Cape and you'd be in sand. We asked John to put down turf, and, it just didn't make sense for him to invest in the money. So we decided, again, for the product to be the same at every event, we need to do them all in Maynard. Now, I mean, I don't know if a lot of you guys have been to AG, and Eric had even said, and I'm going to make my field, my pits, my everything exactly like yours. Are you okay with that? I said, yeah. I said, I'm fine with that. Go for it. That way, when we do something together, they know exactly what they're going to get. It's going to be the same exact field, the same exact pits, the same exact setup. So when you go field to field to field, the product should be the same. So if you go and play hockey, I mean, the rink should be the rink. Your bench should be your bench. The penalty box should be where the penalty box is. And when players can know what to expect and have that expectation met, then they have a better experience. So that's all what we're all about. So now that we have fields being more consistent, if we can bring the referees to be more consistent, then the product should be the same whether you go to AG or you come to Maynard. And that's what made the NEPL come back full circle.
Well, if you need, I'd like to get back into it. So if you need somebody.
All right. Yeah, definitely. Well, I'll introduce you to Matt.
Excellent.
Any more input on that first question before we move on to a different question, which we've already answered, but.
Out of curiosity, with the 7-man format, is that going to be like on a separate weekend under current COVID restrictions? So you'd have to do, XBall on Saturday, D3 on Saturday, D4 on Sunday, and then 7-man on a separate weekend? Or I'm just curious how that would work with the 7-man under current restrictions.
So 7-man would be considered the NEPL, and the NEPL will definitely be on different dates than the NEXL. They'll be on complete different weekends.
We
And
have
we'll
the dates at the end.
We'll get you the dates.
Yeah, perfect. We didn't play much this year. A bunch of old men can't afford to be getting sick. So I'm just curious. Thanks.
And I got a question.
What's worked out really. I'm sorry. Just let me. What's worked out really well with being able to split the divisions on the dates is being able to keep things together, so you only have 10 teams on site, and without, obviously, with Maynard spread out and the extra pits added, that was a whole lot of spacing too, so that worked out really nicely. So sorry, go ahead, Henry.
So with the XBall and NEPL being on different weekends, is there a way that you can lump together a franchise fee? Like, say, for example, if Infamous wanted to play the 7-mans plus XBall, can you lump that into one franchise fee somehow, or is it like single registration for events for the NEPL? Like, is there like a group price that we could pay to do both those 7-mans and the whole franchise?
Yeah, you'll see that the franchise is a little different this year, where you'll save about 10% on the entrance for doing the franchise, but you'll also save $10 a case. So if any team was to franchise for one format and then want to play another format, I would extend the 10% off the entrance and extend the $10 off a case.
Okay.
Let's go to this next question, which we already answered, but just so we can recap, is format. So the one reason we want to stick with that NXL rule, which means you can play in different formats, even if they happen on the same weekend, but you can't play in the different divisions of the same format, is we don't want it to be an arms race. We want everybody to practice with their team, build new teams. If all of a sudden we're allowing people to jump, all of a sudden every D4 team is going to have 2 D3 players. They're going to be pulling D3 guys over. All of a sudden, some D4 players or building players won't get the playing time that they deserve during the practices. And we just feel that that's not good for the league. It's not good for competition. So the NXL has that rule in place, and we feel it's a good rule. Anybody want to put input on that particular topic? No, everybody understands why it's there, and it kind of makes sense. All right.
Yeah.
We went over COVID restrictions. We don't have to do that one. So this is another topic that everybody that knows who's been playing the NEPLs for the last 20-something years knows that the path for us is huge. One of the reasons we purchased BKI and have moved forward and done things with the Combine and Team USA is we want players to have a path. And a lot of the times, and we criticize and we work with and support all these different, the MPPL, PSP, NXL. Obviously, you guys know we've been feeder series for a lot of them because we really do believe that a path is something solid. Some of their game plans are better than others. This is one that has been in the making for a while. We're starting to emulate other sports, things that work versus trying to reinvent the wheel. So you're probably going to see this for the NXL this season. And we don't have to participate if we don't want to. And so what it is, I don't know, Laurie, were you able to make another?
I did,
All
yeah.
right. Let's slide over to this slide and I'll kind of talk it out with you. So this would be if the NEXL decided we wanted to be part of the Super Cup, we would forfeit part of our individual prizes. So say right now in D3, we're giving $2,000 for first and $1,000 for second, say. And we were like, all right, well, what we're going to do, instead of giving 2,000 for first and 1,000 for second, we're going to give, again, just to make things easy, we're going to, half of that's going to go into this bigger prize pool, this per division, the Super Cup. And so instead of 2 and 1, now it's going to be 1,500. That way it covers your paint bill, say, for that day, but it doesn't really cover more than that. And the winner of these series, so, would be in the Super Cup. The Super Cup would be the weekend, the bye week of the Super Bowl. So it's usually the last weekend in January, and it would be in Florida. The venue that they have is crazy. It's like they're building it up in like a polo club type of facility. They're talking about having it like literally on TV live. So they're trying to build this like really big event where they only allow 12 teams per division. And so there'll be 12, obviously, D5s, D4, D3s, D2, D1, 12 pro teams. And the NXL has told me that as early as yesterday that this is a 90% go for the NXL, which means if you play an NXL, all of their prizes no longer, you don't get prizes per event. Everything is seed points to get into this Super Cup. And how it would work is the series winner for the NXL would automatically get a bye into the Super Cup. If you won any of the NXL major events, so the 4 or 5 major events that you're used to, then you would get a berth into the Super Cup. The top ranking NXL Europe team in each division would get a bye into the Super Cup. The Latin America series winner, the NEXL series winner, the regional partner in the South, the West, and the Midwest. So then that's how it would work. And what they would now, you would look at, this would be the prize package for Super Cup for D3, where, and how it would work is you would go there, your entrance is covered by, by our league, and you would show up, and the first time you show up, you register, get your IDs, whatever, say, just register. I don't even think you need IDs. You're going to get 2,000 cash right there, right when you sign up, because the worst that you can do is $2,000. And the reason they're doing that and they're holding it back is, one, they need you to show up. Once you show up, they're going to give you $2,000. So that way, maybe that pays for your hotel or your rental car, or reimburse you for the flights that you just paid for to get down there. And then at the end of the event, say you come in 4th, they're just going to give you the difference and say, here you go, here's $4,000. They're trying to build up these prize pools to make them more substantial, and then also make it so the notoriety or of winning is bigger by trying to put it on TV. And I talked to, obviously, Ryan a lot, and Ryan's the biggest guy in paintball by far, and he didn't want to hold up the $12,000 check. He was like, I feel like $12,000 for split 8 ways is kind of embarrassing. So like he's like, and we talk to Tom all the time, and he knows, and anybody that plays the NXLs obviously doesn't do it for the prizes, because your cost versus what you get out is very, very bad ratio. So doing something like this is a potential step in the right direction. And this is just like the D3. So pros would be first place is going to be $50,000. And, D4 might be first place is going to be $15,000. And, D2 will be $25,000. D1 will probably be $30,000, something like that. So you guys kind of see how it works. And these numbers that I put in here are very close to accurate, based on, Laurie and I have been in some of the internal meetings, obviously, when we discussed how this would work. But this is real. So the big thing for me too is the TV thing. And so they're trying to nail that down too, where if it could be live and on either like Fox Sports or CBS Sports or like Peacock or something like that, those are the things that they're talking about. But is this something that even you guys think would be worth putting some of our prize money towards? or are you guys really just like, no, we're playing, like, we play locally, we wouldn't go to this even if we want it type of thing?
I mean, I know I'm interested in that. On behalf of the Knights.
I honestly would be interested as well.
Yeah, I'd be interested.
I think you're going to get about half and half, to be honest, for teams. I think it's going to be a real split, just knowing the leagues.
Well, how I look at it, and I'm sorry if this comes across like real blunt, but you have teams that can win and teams that can't win. And the teams that can't win, you normally are like, well, I'd rather have a lower interest fee and lower prizes. The teams that feel like they can win don't mind paying a little bit extra because they're going to win. So, but rational thinking says, well, if I'm okay paying the normal rate and I'm upset that maybe the entrance fees, the prizes are getting halved, well, your chance of winning didn't change. So if you were risk averse to the fact that I don't want to pay more because I don't think I'm going to win, well, then this hasn't affected you. You know what I mean? Because you were never going to win in the first place, if that's your mindset. But for me, we don't care as a league. Like we believe that this program is pretty cool, but if we don't want to be part of it, someone else will just be part of it, and I'll still support it and think it's a good idea. But I'm also an optimist and feel like, let's keep trying until we succeed here versus not trying at all. But again, this league is about the teams and about the players that play in it. And that's why we have meetings like this, so you guys can have input.
Yeah. Can you guys hear me? Just making sure.
I can hear you.
True.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I think this is a good idea. It makes a lot of sense. Why? Because basically when I go to events and pay for it, I'm just like, okay, this is basically what it's going to cost me, win or lose. Like, so I go in assuming that like I've already spent that. So that's how I go into it. So I think because for me and where I'm at and where my players are at, we're all sort of like, returning and getting back into the groove, and we're trying to build like our skill base. So locally right now, it works perfectly. The prize money is not something we ever really think about. You know what I mean? So I don't think if you're playing to get better, you're not really thinking about like, oh, I'm going to win money, and I think right now this combination with AG also is going to feed into like the player base getting better, getting more looks, traveling, getting used to like what paintball can like really be. So I think it's good in that sense. And right now, like none of us are trying to like play in an NXL event. Like I talked about Philadelphia, like for myself, yeah, I want to try one, but I know the team isn't like ready, you don't want to like make that big jump. So this could be a cool idea to get them into one. I like it. Yeah.
Anthony, my question would be like, the teams that do win, what is the, are they going to make it to the Super Cup? Are we going to, or the league help them get there to ensure that that team does travel to get their shot at this prize money? So I know some teams do win locally, but they don't necessarily travel to the NXL events.
So that spot would be that spot in the sense that, say, for instance, we're talking about the D3 and say Chubby Chasers won it and the Chubby Chasers had no interest in representing the NEXL, then the next team would step up and take that spot. As far as helping them get there, that's what this money's already doing. So the league's already paying for your entrance fee, so there's no entrance fee.
Yeah.
And then right when you step in there, you're getting a minimum of $2,000. So that could pay for seven guys' tickets, and then you're just out the hotel and rental car.
Can I just jump in and ask a question? This list on the left is a qualifying like entrance into that cup, Super Cup, right? You win one of these, and you're
yes. Yes.
Okay.
Right. So the only way you get in this is either you're the NXL series winner for D3.
Yeah.
You've won one of the majors. You won Europe. You won Latin America, or you won one of the regional partner series. Yes.
Oh yeah, I'm winning the Latin America one this year for sure.
Nice.
I don't know. I've seen those Wild Dogs play. Good luck.
Yeah, I'm excited. That's why I'm excited. They were really good.
Yeah, they were.
Has there been any talks about? I think it's a great idea to start. There's a lot of potential with it too. Has there been any talks at that higher level of scalability once the media coverage could get brought in, like how this could go? You know,
Unless you're a major one.
Yeah. So basically, the reason why the NXL has 6 spots and everybody else only has 1 is because they're putting the majority of the money up.
Yeah.
So they're saying all of the money that we normally give to D3 over 5 events is all going into this. If down the road we want to put more money in, for instance, say the West partner is Hinman, and Hinman's like, this is a great idea. I think everybody should put 20 grand each into this. And then all of a sudden this thing exponentially skyrockets to, 50 grand, where right now maybe we're all only putting in 10 grand, So that's why yes, to answer, it is a 100% scalable prize package. It's scalable as far as media coverage, sponsorship opportunities. So I think the league itself is looking at it as a vehicle, because again, we're in some of those internal meetings and we don't know if it was 100% because COVID or just the fact that certain teams were on Go Sports. For instance, the global participation on Go Sports was up 18% watching World Cup. Latin America was up like 30-something%. They think that had to do with the fact that Wild Dogs were a pro team. They feel that having these winners come in from Europe, Latin America, is going to extend viewership, as well as potentially expand on sponsorship opportunities, because now you have representatives from different markets. So yes.
Right. And when you're talking about the amount of money that we're talking about, we're no longer we're getting towards BMX category kind of in terms of being able to go to coverage and market it a little bit better, because you do have the inclusiveness of everybody around the world, and then you have these big prize packages that are just make it seem like it's bigger too. So
Anthony, I think not worried about teams not signing up. Some teams will do locally like 2, maybe 3 events for NXL, but if there's not going to be any prizes at each event and it's just going to be at the end, are they worried about teams just dropping for the the 5 major events?
They're not, no. And to be honest, I think their long-term goal is not to have as many major events. I think that their long-term goal is eventually for fields to run open events, and for them to have the World Cup, the Super Cup, and maybe 1 or 2 majors outside of those 2 events, and that's it. I think that they're setting the path up for potential fields to take back some of these big events. So Laurie's been a big proponent of this for as long as I can remember, is that these NXL events come in and it's like a circus. So they come in, they set up their fields, they leave. Any spectators, any players, any hopes of retention are completely gone because there's no paintball field left behind. So one of the things that this allows, hopefully, us to do as an industry is to have infrastructure at, if not existing fields, maybe new tournament structures that allow paintball fields to be at after they leave. And you would be surprised, because I certainly was, how much money these towns and counties and states are willing to put in to infrastructure to have these events come to their towns or their counties.
Okay, yeah, it's interested to see the long-term plan, I guess, once that comes out.
Puts a little bit of more power back in our hands too, because we control the product better. And since we're making big investments by handing over all this cash, we get to be a little bit more exclusive, and it makes everybody step up their game. And then you're holding the local leagues to a different level too, because they know what the next jump is. So it trickles down a little bit, and I know that scares a lot of people sometimes in that thought, but it just makes the regional events that much more elite and that much more better, and they're at fields, and then the local events step up their game too, so everybody kind of reaps the benefits of having a little bit of a higher bar.
Now, that being said, obviously, you know, we're at a disadvantage here in the Northeast with the amount of field time that we get compared to somebody who's out of Texas per se. So, I mean, we'd all have more at risk by having to, you know, ramp our games up or be on our A game, as you had said. And I've heard from a lot of people that it feels like when they get to a national event that there's a difference, you know, there's a big performance difference between teams in our area compared to teams from areas that can practice year round, get field time year round. So I mean, we're at a small disadvantage there. I mean, I guess you can practice harder to make that difference up. But also, are we going to get more info on other teams that are in that league and how each division at other areas that we're up against are doing, so that, you know, we have a better idea of the ranking as this Super Cup goes on? I mean, how are they going to be giving us info around that so that we know, you know, officially how everyone's doing?
It would be per league. So the NXL will have a running series, so you'll know where their series winners or, you know, could potentially come from. Obviously, you'll know who won events by just looking at the APPA who won events. We keep our series always up to date after each event.
Well, yeah, I know our series, but I'm more concerned of the teams that we'd be facing from other series.
You probably
Yeah,
just go
everything's
APPA and look
APPA.
at them.
Yeah, everything's APPA ranked. They have to be in there.
WCCPL, NPPS, you know, MSXL, just go on their pages and see how those teams place in each tournament, probably.
Okay, I just didn't know if they would be sent, you know, that information would be centralized under a new event called, you know, per se called Super Cup or something like that. You know what I mean? Instead of having to go to each individual series to figure out what's going on in that series.
When we did the regional partnership, it was probably 2 years ago now, where we tried to have a centralized point system just for that, so everybody could understand how that was. It was difficult because not everybody that was involved in that was using the same rules, I guess. So going into this,
that was my concern.
Yeah, we could definitely, I think the reason for that is they were trying to be super inclusive of, and so like in the Northeast here, we had 3 or 4 different leagues that were all trying to contribute to that. And the roster allowances were what was screwing that up in terms of awarding points. So all of that's by the wayside. So this is easy to be able to just show who's in the lead in each thing. I think that's something that they could just put together on a website and you'd be able to track it.
Is there a reason you even care who's coming out of another region?
No, I'm just a thought, honestly. No, there's no real concern there. We're going down this rabbit hole, so there's just something that popped up in my head. Also, you know, obviously this is a really tough year in my eyes, that for them to do something like this to encourage, you know, more of these national events, which obviously this does encourage teams that like ourselves that haven't been to a national event yet, you know, to want to go to a national event. But, you know, with the COVID age right now, I know that's, you know, they're rolling the dice on something that's
well, this event wouldn't happen until 2023. I'm sorry, 2022. So it'd be January 31st, 2022.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Okay.
I guess I missed that unless you didn't say that before.
No, yeah, I said it. So it's Super Bowl. Okay. It's the weekend that the Super Bowl has a bye. But it's obviously this would be played out in 2021. So January of 2022 would be the Super Cup.
Interesting. Okay.
So if we're still living in that same, you know, we might have some people that are still wearing masks and everything in 2022, but we would hope that people would be okay to travel in 2022.
Yeah, and they're also super mindful of how big their events are. I know Cup was still big. We were kind of a little bit like, it's still big, but they're being very mindful of the size of their events too, which is why I think they're trying to bring down the number of major events that they're doing, because they know that, I mean, let's be honest, in certain parts of the country, it's easier to run things than it is in others. So they've been mindfulness of that too. So I think they're trying to keep things smaller, and then also let the fields have more control over what's going on as well, in their model towards getting towards, like a Mardi Gras and a Skyball. Like, those were all individual events. And I think that the Super Cup and World Cup is kind of, like Anthony said, the path that they're trying to head down, maybe in terms of having these big events. If you keep everything on the local level, that contributes to how big you have to run on a national level.
And for us, there's no risk in the sense that, say, for instance, Super Cup doesn't happen, then we can just retroly compensate the teams that won. For instance, if, again, going by the model of, we used to give 2,000, 1,000, now we're going to give 1,500 and 500. At the end of the year, Super Cup doesn't happen for some, because of restrictions, then we can just be like, all right, you won one event, then you have $1,000 credit, or, you know what I mean? It's not like you're out the money. So that's kind of easy. But any other questions for this before we get to the next slide? I knew this was going to encompass a lot of the talk, things that are speculation, but I'm hearing, again, from Tom Cole himself yesterday, and Laurie and I have been in talks with him through the whole pandemic about shrinking things back down to more regional open events and having less major events. And one of the things that has always escaped them and why they didn't want to do it again is because they didn't have that product. So hopefully they can have a really good product. So when people they partner with, like us and other series, can potentially give a product that they're proud of to put their stamp on. And that's what happens a lot of times is you go event to event, venue to venue, tournament series to tournament series, and you're not getting the same product. So once they feel like that can happen, you might see, like I was saying earlier, less major events from the NXL and more open events that they sanction at paintball fields that kind of want to step up their infrastructure. All right, Law, let's go to the next slide, which I believe is dates.
The last one, you got it.
All right. So this year, we try to put some stuff all in one spot. These dates are not 100%, and I'll tell you why they're not. Is we have the World Championships for Team USA, or if they happen, which we're hoping they happen. We've been given the window that the World Championships are going to be somewhere in July through September. So we may have to switch one of our dates based on the fact that, we will be with Team USA. The other thing is Eric from AG is just confirming these dates, but he said that they're 90%. Where, the April one, he said I can definitely do. The August one, he's just making sure that he's going to move his big game to, I believe, the July 30th, August 1st weekend. And that's when he's going to have his big game. And then he'll hold his NEPL on that August 7th, 8th. Those P&L 10-mans are definite. Again, we talked to Mike through this whole process and he had a unbelievable lucky, his dad was looking down on him for November 60-degree weather at the last 10-man event. So he wanted to push his a little bit further in to accommodate, make sure he had good weather again. So he's going to go out of November back into October. And so that way you got the 23rd and 24th for his event. We're going to wrap up the NEXLs on October 9th and 10th. Again, a lot of forethought went into these dates to be able to accommodate the whole area. I'm sure there's some good dates too left for Matt's Outback if he's going to run some of his OPS. Another reason I didn't want to go on a bunch of Sundays is to allow other leagues to have some Sundays to still choose from. and then again took into effect us working again with the NEPL with AG and Mike's 10-man events. So from a regional overview, having a lot of opportunities for players to play 3-man, 5-man, 7-man, 10-man, mechanical. We told Mike, we're not going to do any mechanical events. He was like, great, I'm not going to do any traditional tournaments. So we didn't really dilute the market, even though Mike did really well. He didn't like try and run with like a third 10-man event. So I think from an overview of a region, I feel very strongly that the players have a real good look at a bunch of different formats, lots of different fields, very good experiences to be had at all these locations. So hopefully you guys will have a good season and have, again, a real good idea of choices where if you want to, if you're the type of team that's like dedicated XBall, then you've got your 5 dates that you can do with some crossover if you want. And then maybe you're a type of team that wants to play a couple 10-mans, a couple 7-mans. Then you've got the opportunity to do that and still play 4 events in a year. If you just want to play a couple 10-mans, you can play a couple 10-mans. If you want to play a couple 7-mans, there's a couple 7-mans. If you're a newer team and want to play some 3- and 5-man, you've got options there too. Obviously, we threw our summer camp in there just so people had those dates that we always do it on that third weekend or last weekend of July. And questions on these dates?
I just got one on the Maynard 3-man, 5-man, 7-mans. Are they going to be split out among the 2 days, like 7-man on Sunday and 3 and 5 on Saturday, or how's that going to work?
They're definitely going to be on 2 different days. I believe the 3-man, if I had to guess, 5-man will be on Saturday and 3-man and 7-man will be on Sunday, because there's no crossover between 3-man and 7-man players, where there may be some crossover for 5-man and 7-man players, but that's not 100%. It will happen on those weekends, and we most likely will split days, because they are different formats. We want the ability of people to play. You might have some crossover from 3 and 5, so we want them on different days. Eric made a good point on that, and we'll probably put 3-man and 7-man together because you will have the least crossover from 3-man and 7-man.
Makes sense. Cool.
Is the P&L on July 10th and 11th, is that 100% confirmed? Because the last time I spoke with Mike, it was tentative because of Ion.
Yeah, anywhere with Mike and I were talking about his date, and Mike was looking at every date available, and we were plopping around. He was going to step on something, so he was going to reach out to Chloe and say that, yeah, he's staying on that date. So again, I'm not going to say any of these things 100%, but they've been given a lot of thought, and unless something changes that we don't know about, then these dates will probably be sticking. Yes.
Okay, sweet. Yeah, I was just wondering, because most of our team, we run, Eric and I here, we run the Misfits. We've got like a bunch of players that are going to be going to Ion that weekend. So, and we're a P&L team, so we're trying to like balance between, all right, who's going, who's staying. So,
yeah, if he moved it into June, I think there was an EMR date in June that he would have stepped on, and I believe the Vulcan truck had already committed to being there, so he wanted to make sure that Vulcan didn't have a conflict. So you could talk to Mike. I don't want to speak for him, but I know that he gave it a lot of thought on where his date was going to be, and that's where he landed.
oh yeah, definitely. Like I said, I'm just curious. I wasn't sure if you had gotten anything more than we did. So that's all. I just wanted to double check.
We tried to give you guys good spacing. Obviously, with all of these events, you weren't going to have equal spacing, but there's good spacing. If you're playing the NEXL series, you have like 5 weeks in between. If you're playing the NEPLs, there's weeks in between. If you're going to do some crossover, there's very rarely an event that's back to back. So hopefully this works for the majority of the players. And any other questions before I take final question? Any more questions on the dates before we open it up to just general questions to wrap up?
The NXL didn't drop their dates yet, right? Yet.
They have not publicly dropped their dates, no.
Okay. I'm just trying to plan it out in my head so I can tell my wife when I'm not going to be home.
Gotcha.
No problem.
For the NEXL dates, is it going to be D4 plays on one day and D3 plays on another, like set, like D4 will be on Saturdays and D3 will be on Sundays? Or is it going to like flip-flop all season?
So for the April event, we're definitely going to hold them on separate days. Laurie and I will talk it over with some of the captains and find out which day will be which. But if we do decide to go with separate days throughout the whole season, it will flip-flop, and we will tell you ahead of time so you can ask for days off. But we don't think it's fair that, the D3 gets all Sundays.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I was just curious because I work Saturdays, so if we're going to play on Saturdays, I need to have them off,
Absolutely, yeah. And you'll know that by, the first of the year. To be honest, the one thing I'm waiting on is for the Europe meeting that we have with all the countries for the World Championship. Once they decide on a date for the World Championships, that's going to lock in all these dates for us. And then we can lock in what day is Saturday. But for the most part, we'll probably start off with the April 10th will be D4, April 11th will be D3. The following, May 22nd will be D3, 23rd will be D4, and just kind of swing back and forth like that. That way, if you're a D4 player, you only have to take 3 Saturdays off for the whole year. And if you're a D3 player, you're going to take 2 Saturdays off all year.
Sweet. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, let's open it up for last minute questions for just general. Anything that anybody has that they want to go over?
Are you and Lori going to be doing more of those live videos, like recapping events and doing the draws on Facebook Live if the restrictions are lesser, next year?
There's no reason for us not to do it. And one of the things that we're trying to do with that videographer that I'm hoping to snag before the season starts is that we want to try to get some interviews at the events. We want to have like a little video wrap up of each event. That way we can have those shows after, so we can show a little bit of a video, give a little bit of props out to the winners, maybe something cool happened during the event that we can showcase, and then do those draws, because we like doing them, and we feel like the teams and the players get a little something to see themselves on a show. We all know that the prizes aren't what we play for, so anytime we can bring light to a team or a player that's doing well, we'd like to do that.
Yeah, I'm really excited about that. I was saying to Matt before the indoor 3-man, I was saying, like, hey, you got to get a photographer in there, someone to take pictures who's going to post them, because nobody takes pictures. It's like, no, like, it's like it never happened. So I was, in that sense, I was thinking, like, when you guys get that videographer, have him at the events just taking pictures for the NEPL and the NXL or the NEXL and posting them for you guys, so that, like, that way, like, we're all seeing it and we don't have to, like, individually pay photographers, because it's okay, like, it's $100 for a team, but at the same time, like, it's another $100, like,
yeah, we've tried.
I mean, people reach out. Some people will say that they're coming and they make deals with teams. Sometimes I don't always know they're coming and they show up. And we've been very loose with the reins in the past couple of years. So
Instagram, like tried to get. I talked to 4 people and only one guy was able to come to, like, Bone. Yeah. He was going to Matt's that week. Everybody else was going to Matt's that weekend. So yeah, but yeah, that's just
It's super hard to find somebody to do video. We just had this conversation with Smiley Joe last night, and he was like, there's such a vast difference between someone who can do basic video and then like just a slight in upgrade in video is
Better
a world of difference. Yeah.
How do we
so.
get Nick Kukuza out here so we can do video for you?
I'll tell you, again, it's a budget. You need a budget video. We talked about Peanut. We can't afford Peanut. So it's, yeah, there's definitely some compromises to be made there. But we're working on to figuring that out. I think my one question would be, since we've mostly had franchise teams, I've always been a proponent of the fixed schedule, so you know who you're playing in advance every event. But it seems to be like guys like the draw thing, and you don't necessarily like it doesn't matter who you're playing. So, for example, if we had all franchise teams and we knew that there were 12 teams in for the season, we could play with the idea of a fixed schedule so that it changes from event to event. But I don't know if that's always just something that's in the back of my head. So I just thought I'd throw it out there.
So I have a quick question. Say the Spartans franchise for D3, but we still want to do one or both of the 7-man NEPL events. So obviously the franchise fee for D3 is the $27.50. What would be the cost for entry for the 7-man?
We don't have that done yet.
Okay.
But you get 10% off.
Okay.
And you'll
then
get
you
your
paint,
franchise
too.
paint, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So does anybody have any input on what Laurie just said as far as having a fixed schedule for the whole season, but still having a playoff every event? So instead of doing a draw, all it does is make sure that you play everybody throughout the season in the prelims, versus if you do a draw, obviously there's a chance that you're going to play someone you've already played. So say, for instance, you have a 12-team division, you're playing 3 matches. So over the season, you'll play all 11 teams at least once in the prelims. And then you'll obviously, because you have to play a total of 15 prelim matches, you're going to play 4 teams twice. Is that better than doing a draw?
I think it creates more equality and more balance across the ranking structure. So I think that makes sense. Because if
there were teams that we
harder
didn't.
teams. Oh, go ahead.
There were teams that we didn't play at all in the prelims this year, and we played multiple teams I think we played one team at every event. I think we played AG at almost every event, and it would be nice to see all the teams in our division in the prelims throughout the season. So if it's possible to do it that way, I think that would be nice.
It's possible if we get, if everybody's committed and we have, everybody franchises and we fill the spots, then it's definitely possible.
I think it makes sense both for the teams that maybe, like you were saying beforehand, the more top teams, and it also makes sense for the lower teams because you're getting balance across the entire division instead of just always versing maybe the top teams if you're a top team, or always versing the lower end teams if you're a lower end team. I feel like it's fairer for both ends to get that equal competition. I think it makes sense.
What I always liked about it was the idea that you could scout the teams that you knew you were playing at the next event.
That
so
too.
you're more invested in the actual event, and so you're paying attention to the game more, and it just makes better paintball players. And so going back to that whole, how do we start competing against teams in other regions on a national level? This is one of the ways that I feel like we can make that happen. It's a small step, but it's when you're watching breakouts of other teams and you're studying other teams and you're coming up with plans and having meetings between events talking about what you saw at an event and then what you expect going into it and who you want to strategically practice. I think it makes teams more invested all the way around.
So that would be only a possibility if we actually had 12 teams franchise. So
yeah, I was gonna say, would you release the entire schedule like in March, or would it be like event to event? Like, yeah, you would know the entire schedule, or would it be like, you know what I mean? You give everyone like all the way up to like the Bones prelim schedule all the way up all at once.
No, you'd know in advance. We could do it in advance.
I mean, I think if you get 12 franchise teams, it only makes sense to roll with that.
Yeah.
Okay. That's good input. Good question. Is there any other questions? General questions right now? All right. Well, I want to thank everybody for coming out and participating in this annual captain's meeting. I feel like we got a lot accomplished. I'm looking forward to the 2021 season. We're putting new net up in Maynard this year. Trying to think if there's anything else major we're doing besides net. Not, with all the new turf went down the year before, all the pits you might see some of the pits on field 2 changed, but it'll really depend on whether or not we're doing one field a day. So if we're doing more one field per event, then I will concentrate on that being more of the 7-man field and upgrade that for 7-man. If we're going to be using both fields, then I may spend the funds to just make the pits the same. So that one will kind of play by ear. And the other thing we're always struggling with, and COVID definitely screwed us last year because we had it set up, was to get another router up on the tower. We have internet problems coming from the registration container out to the tower on field 1, and that limits what we can do out there from a webcast point of view. We even wanted to just put a couple fixed cameras up there that people could tune into for free and just watch some points. So that is our goal. We've already have the cameras. We just haven't had the opportunity to get the internet there. We have to literally put another telephone pole and run a hard line to the tower, is what I'm being told, to get consistent Wi-Fi out there. So all the repeaters and us even running cable, you have so much drop off. I don't know if it's amperage or bandwidth, whatever it is, running a 500-foot Cat5 cable from the registration container out to the tower. So if anybody knows anybody that knows how to do that exactly, then definitely message me. But what I'm being told by Verizon or Comcast or whatever I have out there is that we need to put a second router out in the tower to have that type of bandwidth to do a webcast. So, but it is on our list, and it was going to be done for this past year, but with COVID, we had to do so many upgrades for restrictions that it kind of got put by the wayside. So we're going to revisit that.
All right, guys. Tap dancing.
Yeah, you can hear her. Yeah, she's right next to me. All right, everybody have a good day. And again, I appreciate everybody coming on.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, you too.
Thanks.
Good stuff, guys.
Take care.
Have a good one.